Ticket to Ride. Now the object of this game is to get the most points, and you can do this in 3 ways. So you can do it by placing trains on the board. So you place your trains between 2 cities. You can see there I've got Washington and Raleigh, so I have my trains there. You can also complete routes that are on your destination card. So I have a card here that says New York to Atlanta. So once I've placed all my trains on the board from New York to Atlanta, I'll get the points that are mentioned on that card at the end of the game, these points here. Now the third way that you can get points is by having the longest continuous route on the board. So if this route was to continue along here, up here, and perhaps up to Calgary and along to Vancouver, that's a really long route and possibly would be the longest route on the board. But of course you're playing against other players and they may also manage to get a long route, so you count all that up at the end of the game. So we start by placing the board on the table. Now each player chooses a colour and they place the matching token on the board in the space next to the 1. So that's that space there. Now I'm going to be playing a 2-player game, so I have 2 colours here. If you're playing more than 2 players, then you would have more counters here. Each player also takes 45 matching train cars. So take the pack of train cards, that's these ones here with the train carriages on, and shuffle it, and then deal each player 4 cards. Now you keep these cards to yourself, you don't share them with the other players, they're yours alone. Now place the deck next to the board, and you're going to take the top 5 cards and just lay them along the edge of the board. So 3, 4, 5. So now we shuffle the destination pack, and that's the one that has the routes showing on it. Shows you Chicago to Santa Fe. And what we're going to do is we're going to deal 3 of these destination cards to each player. I'm going to take the rest of the pack and I'm going to set it by the edge of the board. Now you pick up your cards. Now make sure you keep these a secret from the other players. And you have a look at what you've got. Now you can keep all 3 cards. If you think you can accomplish getting routes built from each of those cards, then you can keep all 3. Or you can choose to discard 1 card. Now if you discard a card, it goes to the bottom of the pack. So you get the destination pack and you just slip the card in under there. And then it means that you're going to be working on the other 2. But remember, you can keep all 3 if you wish. It's entirely up to you in this round. At the end of the game, what happens is you'll get points for completing the route. So if I manage to complete San Francisco to Atlanta, which is from one side of the board to the other, I would get 17 points added to my points total. But if I fail to create that route and finish it, I would have 17 points deducted from my score. Now the first thing you need to do is select someone who's going to go first. Now you can do this randomly, or you might choose someone who has travelled a lot. That's entirely up to you. Now on each player's turn, they will do 1 of 3 actions. You can select 2 cards, you can place some trains on the track, or you can select 3 destination cards. And you'll do that one of those actions only on each turn. So each player gets a turn to take one of those actions. So it's first player's turn, and what they've decided to do is to take 2 cards. Now they can take 2 cards from the top of the deck like that, and they put those in their hand. Or they can select to take their cards from down here. So they might take this card. Now if they do that, immediately you have to replace the card because you must always have 5 cards here. So they might decide to take this as a second card, and again you replace it straight away. So you can do that, or you can also take a combination of cards. So they could take 1 card from here, and they can take 1 card from here. And again, replace it straight away. Now if there's a wild card on the table, and they decide to take that, that is the only card that you can take. You can't take a second card. So you take that card, replace it, and that's the end of the turn. However, if that card was on the top of the deck there and you picked it up, that's just your good luck. Nobody knows you've got it, so you can take a second card and you can take it from the deck or you can take it from the table. Okay, I just want to explain the wild card to you, and this is what the wild card looks like, and there are 14 of these in the pack, so plenty of them to use. Now, what the wild card does is it substitutes for any other colour. So you can see here I've got 2 orange cards. Now just suppose I have a track that needs 3 orange cards. I only have 2. I can actually use the wild card to make up the 3. So that will complete the route that I'm trying to build. Now player 2 has got 3 yellow cards in his hand plus a wild card. Now if we look at the destination card that this player has, you can see that it goes from Vancouver up the top here down to Santa Fe. So we have in this spot a route that has 3 yellows. Now you can either play the 3 yellow cards to put your train on there, or you could use 2 yellow and 1 wild card. I'm going to use the 3 yellow, so I show everybody what I'm going to do. I'm playing 3 yellow cards and they go into the discard pile. And what I do then is I put my train on that route. Now just before we go to the next player, we need to finish off this turn. So we've played 3 trains, so we come down here to the scoring board and you can see that 3 trains will give you 4 points. So we take our counter and we count out 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we can go on to the next player. So now we're back to player 1. Now player 1 has a destination of Duluth to Houston. Now if you look at the board you can see Duluth up here and Houston down here. So that's the track that he has to complete. So I'll just put that aside. Now you'll see that is all grey spaces. Now what that means is you can play any colour on those spaces, but they must be the same. So if you take these 2 here, they'd have to be 2 yellow, 2 pink, 2 orange, but they can be any colour as long as you've got 2. On here you would be able to use just 1 of any colour. So anytime on the board you see a grey space, it means you can use any colour card. Right, so player 1 has 2 yellow cards, and so we're going to discard 2 yellow cards and we're going to put our train on the tracks to start our route. Now you'll notice that these grey tracks here are all doubles. Now what that means is that when it's another player's turn, they can claim the other side of those tracks, like that. Now that only applies in a 4 or 5 player game. When you're playing a 1, 2 or 3 player game, once the track has been taken by one player, nobody else can use it. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so player 1 has now used 2 of his trains. So we come over here and we take the counter and we move it up 1, 2. Because as we know on the scoring board, 2 carriages is worth 2 points. So we're back to player 2, and player 2 only has 1 card left in their hand, and we could play that 1 card because we have the Vancouver to Santa Fe route. And if you look on the board, you can see that there is a space where we could use 1 card. However, that's a bit of a waste for a wild card. You probably want to hold on to that to add to other cards where you need extras. So we have a look at what's available on the table, and we see here we need some, at some stage we'll need some pink cards. So let's just pick up the pink table card and we'll play a card down there. And then we could take the yellow card if we wish, because we also have some yellow cards, but we might just take a punt and take one from the deck, and we'll just have that. So that's now player 2's turn done. So we've played a few rounds now, and both players have some carriages on the board, and so now we're back to player 1. And when we look at his destination cards, you can see that they've all been completed. So we have Seattle to Los Angeles, Winnipeg to Houston, and Duluth to Houston. So those cards now can be set aside in front of the player because he'll want these cards because these points will add on to his total at the end. So we just set those aside. So now he has a couple of options. He can continue to play cards, so keep picking up cards from the table or from the deck and building up the longest route on the board, or he can take a punt and decide to take some cards from the destination deck. Now when you take cards from the destination deck during the game, you must take 3. Now you can keep all 3 if you wish, but you take a good look at them and see how far in the game you are, how many carriages you've got, whether you'd be able to build a long route or not. Anyway, so he's going to look at these cards. Now we've got one, Duluth to El Paso. Well, we already have a train here that comes down this far, and here's El Paso, so we'll keep that card because we'll no doubt be able to get that finished. Chicago to Santa Fe, got a good chance of finishing that route as well, so we'll keep that card. Los Angeles to Miami. Now Los Angeles is on one side of the board and Miami is on the other. That's a long track to start with, but also to complicate things, player 2 already has part of this route. So that means that this player would have to take a roundabout way to get to Miami. So we won't keep that card. We'll just pop it under the destination deck over here. It just goes to the bottom, and we'll just continue to work with these cards. So we're now coming to the end of the game, and how do we know we're getting to the end of the game? It's when one of the players has 0, 1 or 2 trains left at the end of his turn, and as you can see, player 2 has only got 2 carriages left. Now what happens next is each player, including this player, gets an extra turn. So we'll go to player 1, he'll play a turn, and we'll come back to player 2 and he'll finish his turn. And what they'll do is try and get rid of any carriages that they have onto the board. So now we're at the end of the game and we're ready to score. Now each player will have been keeping track of their points as we go, but it pays to go through and just add up the train carriages that have been played just to make sure that the tokens have been moved correctly, because often you can forget. So you'd go and do them in blocks of routes and according to the scoring table, and just make sure that each player has the right score there. So the next thing is to take the destination cards, and you get the points for the routes that have completed. So player 1 has completed Seattle to Los Angeles, so they receive 9 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, then they've done Winnipeg to Houston, so they get another 12. So it's 92. Then Duluth to Houston, another 8. And Chicago to Santa Fe has been completed, so that's another 9. And Duluth to El Paso, yep, so another 10. Has ended on 119 there, and he's completed all of the routes, so there's no points deducted. Okay, so player 2 has done Montreal to New Orleans, so that's 13. It's also done Vancouver to Santa Fe, so that's another 13. San Francisco to Atlanta hasn't been completed, so we need to deduct those 17 points. Kansas City to Houston hasn't completed that one either, so we take off another 5 points. And that's how the scoring goes. Now, the next thing is to find out which player has the longest route. So you just count up the carriages. So we've got 6, 8, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 27. So player blue has the most carriages. You don't count offshoots, all right? So it has to be a continuous line like that. It could actually have gone up there and would have even more. So player blue gets the bonus card for the longest route. So we're up here and we get another 10. So you ended with 129. So player blue won. Okay, in the event of a tie, it's the player who completes the most destinations wins. But if it's still a tie after that point, then you take the player with the longest route on the board and they are the winner.